Imagine this. You're confronted by someone toxic, someone who drains your energy, pushes your buttons, and leaves you feeling emotionally exhausted. It's like being caught in a storm with no way out. But what if I told you there's a way to rise above it? A way to remain calm, unshaken, and even compassionate in the face of toxicity? No, this isn't some feel-good rhetoric. It's rooted in ancient wisdom that has stood the test of time. Stoicism, an age-old philosophy that teaches us to focus not on changing the world around us but mastering our responses to it, can be your shield against this storm. It's not about avoiding conflict or pretending that the toxic people around you don't affect you. It's about becoming emotionally invincible, learning to navigate these encounters with unwavering peace and strength. You see, the truth is, toxic people will always exist. They thrive on chaos, manipulation, and negativity, but they can only affect you if you let them. If you allow their actions and words to dictate your emotional state, then you're handing them the keys to your peace. But what if you took back control? The Stoics teach us that external events are beyond our control, but our responses to them are entirely in our hands. They believe that we can't change others, but we can control our reactions, and in doing so, we can choose to maintain our peace. The real power lies not in altering the behavior of others but in how we choose to respond to them. So, how do you respond when a toxic person enters your life? Stoicism offers 13 transformative strategies that will give you the tools to face these challenges head-on. These strategies are designed to build mental resilience, protect your well-being, and equip you with the wisdom to handle even the most difficult people with grace and compassion. Imagine facing these encounters with a sense of calm, as though their negativity has no hold on you. In a world where it's easy to react in anger, frustration, or fear, Stoicism teaches us that we can respond with wisdom, compassion, and clarity. You can't control others, but you can control how you engage with them. And that is where your power lies. By the end of this video, you will have a toolbox of life-changing Stoic strategies that will make you untouchable by toxicity. You will have the mental strength to walk through chaos without losing your peace. It's time to rise above the noise. It's time to reclaim your peace. So, stay with me, and let's uncover these transformative strategies together. Imagine you're a guard protecting your fortress, the citadel of your inner peace. Every time a toxic person enters your life, it's like a threat to the integrity of your calm, your emotional well-being. But here's the thing. You have the power to spot these threats from a distance, to recognize them before they even come close to breaching your walls. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, made it clear, it's not the events themselves that disturb us, but how we interpret and judge them. Once you can identify the threat, you can prevent it from infiltrating your mind, your thoughts, your emotions. Toxic people, like storm clouds, may appear out of nowhere, and they will try to rain on your parade. Their criticism, manipulation, and negative energy can be overwhelming. But here's the secret. None of it is personal. When they criticize you, try to remember, It's not about you. It's about their own insecurities, their own dissatisfaction with themselves, their inability to cope with their own emotions. Their behavior says far more about them than it does about you. I've been there, standing in the midst of toxic encounters, feeling like I was being personally attacked, like every word they spoke was a direct hit to my self-worth. But over time, I learned to look past the words. I learned to understand that when someone lashes out, it's often because they are unable to handle their own internal struggles. Their negativity is a reflection of their own turmoil, not a reflection of my value or character. And once I started seeing it this way, the weight of their words started to lose its power over me. When you recognize toxic behavior for what it is, manipulation, insecurity, fear, and bitterness, you disarm its power over you. You don't need to react to their attacks. You can simply observe them, acknowledge them, and then choose to disengage emotionally. This is where the Stoic wisdom truly shines. Stoicism teaches us that we are not controlled by external events. We are only controlled by how we respond to them. So, when a toxic person tries to pull you into their whirlwind of negativity, you have a choice. You can either engage in their drama, or you can remain calm, composed, and unaffected. It's crucial to remember that their behavior is a test of your own emotional resilience. They will try to provoke you, to push your buttons, to get under your skin. But the more you see them for what they are, people struggling with their own issues, the less likely you are to take their words personally. Their attacks are simply projections of their own weaknesses. When you understand this, you can choose to respond with empathy, with patience, and most importantly, with the unshakable calm that comes from understanding the true nature of their behavior. What you'll find is that, as you begin to apply this Stoic strategy, the toxic people in your life will start to lose their grip on you. You'll stop reacting with anger, frustration, or hurt. Instead, you'll respond with clarity, wisdom, and a sense of inner peace. The more you practice this, the stronger you'll become, and the less these toxic threats will be able to penetrate your fortress of calm. You'll no longer allow them to control your emotions, because you'll have already recognized their tactics and learned to protect yourself from them. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, understood that a strong empire needed unyielding determination to stay intact. And when it comes to your emotional health, the same principle applies. You must fortify your walls, protect your inner peace with a sense of unwavering resolve. It's about building a defense system so solid that no toxic person can infiltrate it, no matter how hard they try. This starts with setting clear boundaries. Boundaries that are not just words, but an ironclad commitment to yourself. Setting boundaries is not just about saying no. It's about making a stand, about declaring that your peace and emotional well-being are non-negotiable. Toxic people will test those boundaries, pushing and prodding, trying to find a weak spot, looking for any crack in your resolve. They might manipulate, guilt trip, or even try to convince you that you're being too rigid or unreasonable. But here's the truth. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. It's a sign that you're doing the right thing. Toxic people thrive when they can push past your limits, bending you to their will. But when you stand firm, you show them, and yourself, that you are in control of your own emotional space. This is where the Stoic resolve comes in. When Marcus Aurelius faced battles and challenges, he didn't waver in his decisions. He didn't second-guess himself when it came to the integrity of his empire. And you should approach your emotional health with the same kind of unshakable determination. Boundaries are not a negotiation. They are your way of maintaining control over your life and peace of mind. When you set them, you do so knowing that you deserve to protect your energy from anyone who threatens it. But setting boundaries is not about being harsh or unkind. It's about being firm and consistent. Kindness doesn't mean letting others walk all over you. It means having the grace to enforce your limits without being abrasive or dismissive. You can assert your boundaries without malice, but you must remain consistent. Toxic people will try to test your resolve, push you to compromise, but with Stoic wisdom, you'll know that your emotional well-being comes first. There's no room for compromise in protecting your peace. The beauty of Stoicism lies in its ability to make you impervious to external disturbances. By setting clear, consistent boundaries, you empower yourself to remain untouchable by those who would drain you. When someone oversteps your boundaries, don't feel guilty for enforcing them. Instead, take pride in the fact that you're preserving your peace and protecting your mental health. Stand your ground, no matter how much the other person resists or tries to manipulate you. Their discomfort is temporary. Your inner peace, once solidified, will be lasting. Some toxic people live for drama. It's their fuel, their lifeblood. They want to see you squirm, to provoke a reaction, any reaction, because for them, it's a game. They poke, they insult, they provoke, all while waiting for you to take the bait. They thrive on the chaos they create, feeding off the energy you give when you react. But what if I told you the best way to deal with these emotional barbarians is not to engage at all? The secret is silence, not just silence in words, but in energy, in presence. The gray rock method is the Stoic technique that's all about becoming emotionally uninteresting to these people. You transform yourself into a dull, neutral, unresponsive presence, like a gray rock. No matter how much they try to provoke you, there's nothing they can latch onto. Your emotional response is a fortress, and they can't find any grip. It's a deceptively simple but incredibly powerful tactic. The gray rock method is all about detachment. You stop giving them what they crave most, your emotional energy. Imagine them poking and prodding, looking for a reaction, and you just stand there, unmoved, no anger, no frustration, no excitement. Just a stillness that leaves them with nothing to feed off of. When they realize that their attempts to provoke you lead to nothing, they grow bored, and they eventually move on. They can't use you as their emotional punching bag anymore, because you've taken away their ability to manipulate you. It's not just about ignoring them. It's about mastering your own emotions to the point where their words or actions have no effect on you. This is the true power of Stoic detachment. By practicing this emotional stillness, you don't let their chaos enter your space. You don't give them permission to disrupt your peace. And over time, they'll begin to realize that you're simply not worth the effort. The brilliance of this approach is that it robs toxic people of the fuel they need to continue their behavior. They're looking for someone to react, to give them a piece of your energy, to engage in their drama. But when you deny them that satisfaction, you disarm them. They lose interest. They move on to someone else who will give them the emotional drama they seek. They want you to react, to feel something, but you've learned the power of Stoic detachment, and it's impenetrable. I've personally experienced the transformation that comes with this. In the past, I would have been drawn into the drama, reacting out of frustration or anger, letting the toxic person win. But once I embraced the gray rock method, I saw how much power I had over my own emotional state. No longer was I the puppet in their emotional game. I stopped reacting, and it was like watching the manipulative behavior bounce off of me. And you know what? They stopped trying. It's a quiet victory, but it's a victory nonetheless. It's a powerful reminder that you have the strength to control your emotions. Even in the most chaotic situations, toxic people don't stop at one jab. They push. They persist. They press until they wear you down. It's never just a single comment or one moment of manipulation. It's a cycle, a pattern, an ongoing effort to breach your mental defenses and chip away at your boundaries. That's where the broken record technique becomes your greatest weapon. It's not aggressive, it's not reactive, it's quiet, unshaken, and rooted in the strength of calm repetition. When a toxic person keeps coming at you with the same pressure, they're expecting you to eventually cave. They rely on your emotional fatigue, on the hope that if they hammer hard enough, you'll either explode or surrender. But what they don't expect is that you'll hold the line firmly. Without ever raising your voice, you say the same thing. Every time, like a record caught in a loop. I'm not available for this. This is not acceptable. I've already said what I'm comfortable with. And you say it again, and again, and again. This method may sound too simple to work. I used to think that too. But I remember being in a situation where someone close to me kept pushing boundaries I had clearly set. At first, I tried reasoning, explaining, defending. All it did was feed the manipulation. Then I stopped. I chose one sentence, and every time they pushed, I calmly gave the same reply. No emotion, no elaboration, just the message, on repeat. It was uncomfortable at first. It felt robotic, but the effect was undeniable. The energy shifted, their frustration grew, not mine, and eventually, they gave up. That's the beauty of Stoicism in action. You're not there to argue. You're not there to convince. You're there to stand your ground. The broken record technique works because it creates emotional dissonance in the manipulator. They can't escalate the situation if you don't play their game. They're left facing a wall that doesn't move, doesn't react, doesn't break, They throw chaos your way, and you meet it with composed repetition. That imbalance wears them down instead. It's essential, though, to remember that your tone matters. This isn't about being dismissive or cold. It's about being unwavering. There's a strength in calm that rattles people who are used to stirring up storms. Every time you repeat your line, you're reinforcing your boundary, and more importantly, reinforcing your own internal strength. You're not being passive, you're being powerful in a way they can't touch. Consistency is the weapon, repetition is the shield. You don't escalate, you don't explain, you don't justify. You state your limit and you let it stand. No matter how many times they try to push past it, eventually, they stop, not because they understand, but because they can't win. And in that stillness, in that repetition, you reclaim your peace. Toxic people are like fishermen casting lines laced with bait, guilt, insults, backhanded compliments, carefully placed provocations. They know exactly where to throw the hook. They study your reactions, they memorize your weaknesses, and they wait for you to bite, to flinch, to rise to their gain. But Stoicism flips the script. You become the one who sees the bait, recognizes it, and calmly walks away. No reaction, no validation, just silence wrapped in strength. And that silence, it's more powerful than any comeback you could ever craft. There's a strange power in not responding. I used to think that silence meant weakness, that if I didn't stand up for myself, I was letting them win. But I was wrong, because every time I responded to their bait, I gave them exactly what they wanted, my energy. I let their words steer my emotions, hijack my peace, and steal moments from my day I could never get back. But the moment I chose not to react, something shifted. They grew frustrated, not me. They became louder, more desperate, while I remained still. That was the turning point. Stoic indifference isn't about apathy. It's about power. It's about choosing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Not every comment deserves a reply. Not every insult deserves your anger. When someone hurls negativity your way, Stoicism teaches that it's not the insult itself that matters, it's your judgment of it. The insult is neutral. It's a sound, a word, a fleeting vibration in the air. Only when you assign it meaning, when you take it personally, does it gain power. Imagine someone calling you a name. Now imagine that name spoken in a language you don't understand. It bounces off you. It means nothing. That's what Stoic detachment creates. A buffer between their words and your peace. Their insult becomes just noise, meaningless and empty, unable to pierce your armor. This isn't about being numb. It's about being discerning. It's about protecting your attention like a precious resource, because that's what it is. Toxic people thrive when you bite. They need your reaction to validate their existence. Without it, they're left talking to themselves, casting lines into still water. They'll try harder at first, louder insults, sharper words, sudden kindness to lure you in. But the bait loses all power when you no longer take it. Their tactics dissolve, and they're forced to face a truth they don't want to accept. They can't control you. You've risen above the game. You don't owe anyone your reaction. You don't owe anyone your peace. And once you understand that, once you stop biting the hook, you begin to reclaim every moment, every breath, every ounce of power that used to belong to them. The bait only works if the fish forgets who it is. So remember, you're not the fish. You're the sea, calm, vast, unshakable. Toxic people are masterful at turning words into weapons. They sharpen every sentence with the precision of someone who's done it 1,000 times before. They know which buttons to press, what phrases will sting, and they launch them with one goal: to make you react, to pull you into the chaos, to turn your calm into a storm. But there's a move they never see coming: the art of non-reaction. When you respond with silence, you don't just dodge the attack. You take control of the entire battlefield. You don't give them what they came for. In that silence, there's power. In that calm, there's defiance. You're not ignoring them out of weakness. You're choosing to stand still while they spiral. You're watching their words collapse under their own weight, and you don't lift a finger. That's not passivity. That's mastery. The Stoics knew this well. They trained themselves to respond only to what's worth their energy. Everything else, let it dissolve, let it pass. Let it vanish into the air like smoke. I've lived through moments where I wanted so badly to defend myself, to snap back with something sharper. I've written replies in my head 100 times, rehearsed the perfect comeback, but every time I withheld it, I came out stronger. I realized that my silence left them confused, powerless, exposed, because toxic people don't know how to handle non-reaction. It breaks the cycle. It strips them of their illusion of control. And what's left? Just them, alone with their bitterness, staring into a mirror they never wanted to face. Non-reaction isn't easy. It takes discipline. It takes a kind of emotional courage that most people never cultivate. Your ego will beg you to speak. Your pride will scream to be heard. But the deeper voice, the one shaped by reason, resilience, and Stoic wisdom, will whisper, "Don't, you're above this, and it's right. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to correct every lie. Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is no statement at all." In your silence, you are not defeated. You are elevated. You are refusing to be dragged down into the mud where they live and breathe. You're standing on higher ground, unmoved by their desperate attempts to shake you. And slowly, they'll notice, they'll try harder, they'll get louder, but eventually, they'll tire themselves out, because you're not playing the game. You've chosen another path. This is where you reclaim your peace. This is where you take back your energy. And the beauty of it all, you never had to raise your voice. You never had to explain yourself. You never had to match their chaos with chaos of your own. You simply held your ground, said nothing, and that was everything. Because sometimes, the strongest presence in the room is the one that doesn't speak. The one that simply refuses to be moved. Even the strongest citadel, no matter how fortified, has its vulnerabilities, and when you're constantly surrounded by toxic people, Those weak points get tested over and over until something cracks. You might think you can endure it, that you're strong enough to outlast the negativity. But here's the truth. Endurance isn't always the answer. Sometimes, the bravest, wisest thing you can do is to walk away, not out of fear, not out of weakness, but out of a deep, unshakable commitment to protect your peace. Toxic people are relentless. They don't care about your limits. They don't stop because you're tired. They don't back off when they see you hurting. In fact, some lean in even harder when they know they're getting to you. So ask yourself, why give them that access? Why allow someone who depletes you to sit front row in your life? Limiting your exposure isn't avoidance. It's not running away. It's choosing, with clarity and courage, what belongs in your emotional space and what doesn't. You can't always cut ties immediately. Maybe it's a family member, a colleague, someone you're obligated to interact with. I understand that. I've lived that. But what you can do is limit the time, the energy, and the emotional real estate you give them. You don't owe anyone constant access to your mind, your attention, or your vulnerability. You decide how close they get. You set the terms. When I began to limit my exposure to certain people, something remarkable happened. I could breathe again. I realized just how much tension I'd been carrying, how much of my inner calm was being hijacked without me even noticing. It wasn't about cutting someone off entirely. It was about drawing a boundary and sticking to it. A shorter call, a skipped gathering, a conversation that doesn't dive deep. Every small act of distance created more space for my peace to grow. And that's the goal. You're not being cold. You're being kind to yourself. You're not rejecting others. You're choosing yourself. Stoicism teaches us that we must protect our inner world, not just from the chaos outside but from the people who bring it with them. You're the guardian of your peace, and sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is, I won't let you that close anymore. Distance isn't disconnection, it's clarity. It's knowing who drains you and having the courage to step back. And with every step, you build a life where peace isn't constantly under siege, where your emotional energy is preserved for the people and pursuits that deserve it, where you are no longer fighting battles that aren't yours to fight. That is not avoidance, that is self-preservation in its highest form. No fortress stands alone for long. Even the most self-reliant Stoics understood this truth. No matter how strong your resolve, no matter how disciplined your mind, you are still human, and humans need connection. When you're facing toxicity, when you're in the trenches of emotional warfare, it's not enough to stand alone with clenched fists and silent strength. You need allies. You need people who remind you of who you are when the world tries to make you forget. A support system isn't just about having people to vent to. It's about surrounding yourself with individuals who mirror the person you're striving to become. People whose presence makes you feel calm, not drained. People who speak life into you, who challenge you with kindness, who hold space for your pain without trying to fix or exploit it. When you're around others who embody resilience, compassion, and clarity, those traits naturally rise within you too. There was a time when I thought I had to endure everything alone. That asking for support was weakness. That talking about what I was going through would somehow dilute my strength. But I was wrong. The turning point came when I finally let someone in. Someone who didn't judge, didn't interrupt, just listened. In that moment, I realized that support doesn't make you fragile. It fortifies you. It gives you a safe place to land when you're tired of being strong all the time. Toxic people will try to isolate you. That's their game. They want you to feel alone, unsupported, like your reality is distorted. They'll gaslight, belittle, and chip away at your confidence until you start to believe the lies. But when you have a circle of people who see you clearly, who remind you of your worth, those lies don't stick. Your support system becomes your mirror, a reflection of your strength when you're too clouded to see it yourself. This is where Stoicism evolves. It's not just about inner resilience. It's about knowing when to lean on others. Marcus Aurelius had mentors, Epictetus had students, Seneca wrote letters to friends filled with advice and reflection. The greatest minds knew that wisdom grows best in community. So, choose your people with intention, limit your exposure to those who deplete you, and double down on those who nourish you. Let your allies be your defense. Not in the sense that they fight your battles for you, but in how they anchor you when your emotional ground begins to shake. They'll be the ones who speak truth when your mind starts spinning lies. The ones who offer calm when your world feels chaotic. They'll remind you that peace isn't something you have to earn alone. It can be built together. Word by word, moment by moment, shoulder to shoulder. When you're surrounded by negativity, your energy becomes currency. Toxic people spend it recklessly, draining you with their chaos, their manipulation, their constant need to control the atmosphere around them. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself running on empty, physically there, emotionally hollow. That's why prioritizing self-care isn't just an act of kindness to yourself. It's an act of survival. It's your armor, your foundation, your invisible shield against the slow erosion of peace that toxic energy brings. There's a dangerous misconception that self-care is indulgent, optional, a reward for when everything else is done. But the truth is, it's essential. It's not a treat, it's a necessity. You can't show up fully in life. You can't enforce boundaries. You can't even think clearly if you're constantly depleted. When your well-being is neglected, everything suffers. Your relationships, your clarity, your ability to stay rooted in who you are. You must become fiercely protective of your energy and radically committed to restoring it. That means giving yourself what the world can't always give you. For me, it started with something as small as a 10-minute walk in the early morning. No phone, no noise, just breath and movement. It didn't solve everything overnight, but it grounded me. Then came the journaling, the quiet nights spent reading, the refusal to check messages past a certain hour. Little by little, I was building a sanctuary, not somewhere out there, but within myself, and in that space, the voices of toxic people began to fade. Self-care looks different for everyone, but the principle remains. It's whatever refills you. Maybe it's strength training that reminds you of your power. Maybe it's meditation that recenters your perspective. Maybe it's creating something, writing, painting, cooking, that reconnects you to a part of yourself that feels untouched by drama. Whatever it is, do it deliberately, do it unapologetically, because each act of self-care sends a message. I matter. My peace matters. My energy is mine to protect. Toxic people will never prioritize your well-being. They might even resent it. They'll guilt you, mock your boundaries, try to reframe your self-care as selfishness. That's the test. That's where Stoic strength comes in. You don't defend it. You don't explain it. You stand in it, firm, calm, certain, because when you're nourished, you're immovable. When your cup is full, their chaos can't shake you. You meet their storm with a steady flame that doesn't flicker. So treat self-care as a daily practice, not a rare escape. It is your reset, your recalibration, your quiet revolt against everything that seeks to dim your light. You are responsible for your own well-being, and that responsibility is not a burden, it's a gift, one that, when embraced fully, will transform how you respond to the world, and more importantly, how the world responds to you. Toxic people often operate like mirrors, cracked and distorted. They reflect back a warped image of the world, of others, of themselves. When they lash out, when they belittle or manipulate, it's not you they're really speaking to. It's the chaos inside them. It's the unresolved pain, the insecurity, the fear they don't know how to name. But if you're not careful, you'll start to believe their version of reality. You'll absorb their judgment. You'll carry their shame. That's why one of the greatest acts of Stoic wisdom is this: don't take it personally. It sounds simple, but it's not. I've been there, blamed for things that weren't mine to carry, insulted by people I tried to love, criticized in moments when I needed support the most, and I took it in. I let it settle. For years, I believed their words said something about me. But then I learned to pause, to create a gap between their behavior and my response. In that gap, I saw the truth. It wasn't about me. It never was. What you begin to realize is that most people are reacting to their own story, not yours. You just happen to be the closest target. Their words are a release valve for pressure they don't know how to manage. When they call you selfish, it's often their own unmet needs screaming. When they accuse you of being cold, it's their fear of abandonment talking. The Stoics taught that we must understand the source of someone's behavior before we allow it to shake us. And when the source is pain, anger, or fear, the wisest thing we can do is stand still, not in apathy, but in understanding. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about your own peace to stop letting others write your narrative. It means you stop internalizing what doesn't belong to you. That's the shift, from reaction to observation, from being pulled into the storm to watching it pass from the safety of your inner calm. When you refuse to let their words hook into your identity, you're free. You no longer dance to the rhythm of their dysfunction. You set your own tempo. The moment you stop taking it personally is the moment you take your power back. Their tantrum loses its grip. Their manipulation falls flat. You begin to see them not as a villain, but as a person struggling, flailing, lost in a storm of their own making. And with that clarity, you can choose your response: calm, measured, detached, not cold, but unshakable, not cruel, but wise. You don't need to match their energy. You don't need to fix them. You simply recognize the game, and you stop playing. And that's the freedom Stoicism offers. Not just the absence of chaos, but the presence of deep, deliberate peace in the middle of it. The knowing that you are not defined by what is said to you, but by how you hold your ground in silence. You don't have to absorb their pain. You just have to remember, it was never about you. There's a deep urge in all of us to fix what's broken, to reach into the chaos of someone else's life and pull them into clarity. Especially when it comes to toxic people we care about, family, partners, friends. We want to believe that if we just say the right thing, do the right thing, love them hard enough, they'll change. But that belief, though born of compassion, becomes a trap. Stoicism teaches us to abandon illusions of control. And the hardest one to let go of is the idea that we can change someone who doesn't want to be changed. You can't rescue someone who doesn't see the need to be rescued. You can't heal a person who is addicted to their own dysfunction. And every time you try, you bleed yourself dry. I've done it. I've given time, patience, forgiveness, all in the hope that something I said would finally click, that they'd wake up, see the damage they're causing, and become the person I believed they could be. But that moment never came. Instead, I lost pieces of myself in the process. My peace, my confidence, my sense of direction. Because the more energy you invest in trying to fix someone else, the less you have left to build yourself. This is where Stoic clarity comes in. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to focus only on what's within his control. And another person's growth, their choices, their behavior, that's never within your control. You can influence, yes, you can set an example, but transformation, that's their responsibility. You are not their savior. You are not their solution. You are simply a mirror, a presence, a voice of reason, but only if they're willing to listen. The moment you stop trying to fix them, something powerful happens. You return your energy to where it belongs, your own life. You start investing in your own healing, your own boundaries, your own joy, and in doing so, you begin to radiate a kind of clarity that speaks louder than any lecture ever could. Some may eventually be inspired by that. They may grow, shift, evolve, not because you forced them to, but because your example made them reflect. But even if they don't, you haven't lost yourself trying. Let your actions speak. Let your strength become your message. When you prioritize your growth, you show others what self-respect looks like. And when you step back from trying to save someone, you might finally give them the space to confront themselves. That's not abandonment. That's wisdom. That's choosing to live your truth rather than trying to drag someone else into it. Because real change can't be forced. It must be chosen, and while you cannot make that choice for someone else, you can choose to stop sacrificing your peace on the altar of their potential. That's not giving up on them. That's choosing you, and sometimes, that's the most loving thing you can do, for both of you. There comes a moment, not with a scream, but with a silence so heavy it settles in your bones, when you realize you've given all that can be given. You've listened, you've endured, you've tried every angle to make it work, and yet, the toxicity remains, wrapping itself around your life like smoke, clouding your thoughts, stifling your spirit. That is the moment when Stoicism offers you a truth so sharp. It cuts through every excuse. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away. It doesn't feel heroic, it feels like failure at first. Because we're taught that staying means strength, that fighting for a relationship, for peace, for understanding, is noble. But what if the fight is costing you everything? What if, by staying, you're sacrificing your own sanity? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that nothing is worth losing your peace, not even the illusion of love, loyalty, or obligation, and it's in that clarity that you must make the hardest decision of all, to choose yourself. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared deeply, and finally understood that caring for yourself matters just as much. Maybe more. I've stood at that edge, heart pounding, second-guessing everything, terrified of what leaving would mean. Would I be seen as cold? Would I regret it? But staying in a place that drains you, depletes you, where your presence is undervalued or exploited, that's the real danger. Because every moment spent in that environment chips away at your soul until you forget who you were before the damage. You don't walk away in anger. You walk away in peace. You do it calmly, with a steady breath and a clear mind. You do it because you've tried, and trying has turned into surviving. That's not living. Stoicism isn't about enduring endless suffering. It's about knowing when the suffering is no longer meaningful. When it becomes a cycle of harm that you are no longer obligated to endure. The world may not understand. Toxic people certainly won't. They'll call you selfish, dramatic, disloyal, but that's only because they can't benefit from your silence, your tolerance, your presence anymore. Let them talk, let them misunderstand, because their approval was never the foundation of your worth. And when you walk away, you'll feel it, not immediately, but gradually, a return to yourself, a lightness, a sense of freedom you forgot was possible. You'll begin to rebuild, not in the rubble of what you left behind, but in the space you've cleared for something better, something whole, something true. That is the quiet power of knowing when enough is enough. That is the Stoic path, not just to endure life, but to walk deliberately toward peace, even when that means walking alone. Forgiveness isn't always about others. Sometimes, the hardest person to forgive is the one staring back at you in the mirror. You replay the moments when you stayed too long, when you said yes instead of no, when you silenced your own instincts for the sake of keeping peace that was never real to begin with. And it eats at you, this quiet regret, This whisper that maybe you should have known better. But Stoicism offers a truth that cuts deeper than guilt. You acted with the knowledge you had at the time. And punishing yourself now will not rewrite the past. Forgiveness is not a pardon, it's a release. And it begins with you. You are not weak because you loved someone who hurt you. You are not foolish because you gave chances to someone who didn't deserve them. You were human. You were hopeful. You believed in change. There's no shame in that. But what holds you back now isn't them. It's the anger you carry toward yourself for not walking away sooner. For not seeing the signs. For letting it go on. I know that feeling intimately. I used to wear it like armor, thinking if I held onto the guilt, it would protect me from ever making the same mistake again. But it didn't protect me. It paralyzed me. Resentment is a heavy thing to carry, and when it's turned inward, it corrodes everything: your confidence, your joy, your ability to trust yourself. Stoicism doesn't ask you to forget what happened. It asks you to learn from it, to extract the lesson, and then to let go. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should treat each day as if it were our last, not in fear, but in freedom. How can you live freely when your mind is chained to yesterday? When every decision is haunted by what you wish you'd done differently? Forgiving yourself doesn't mean pretending it didn't matter. It means acknowledging the pain, honoring your growth, and choosing not to be defined by what hurt you. It means understanding that healing isn't linear and that your past doesn't cancel your future. The moment you say, "I did the best I could with what I knew," something shifts. The weight begins to lift. You stop reliving the story and start rewriting it. Letting go is not an act of weakness, it's an act of courage. Because holding on feels safe, familiar, but freedom, that requires facing the unknown with open hands. When you forgive yourself, you stop giving power to the version of you that was hurting. And you step into the version that is healing. You reclaim your narrative, not as a victim, but as a survivor who learned, who grew, and who is now ready to walk forward, lighter, stronger, wiser. You owe yourself that grace. You owe yourself that peace. And the future, it's waiting, not for the perfect version of you, but for the version that is willing to begin again. Dealing with toxic people is not a battle of words or dominance. It's a battle of composure, of clarity, of mastering the only thing truly within your control, yourself. The moment you stop trying to change them and start mastering your own emotions, everything changes. The chaos they bring, it no longer finds a home inside you. The manipulation, the drama, the subtle guilt and sharp insults, they all lose their power the second you refuse to absorb them. That is the quiet revolution Stoicism gives you. Not loud victories, but internal triumphs that shift the ground beneath your feet. I've walked through the fire of toxic relationships thinking I needed to fix everything. To be the bigger person, to stay and endure. But there came a point when I realized endurance isn't strength if it costs you your peace. True strength is in choosing your response, in refusing to let someone else's brokenness break you. And that's what Stoicism has taught me. How to hold the line not through force, but through stillness, how to reclaim my energy, not by resisting others, but by returning to myself. You are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of anyone else's mood, rage, or manipulation. You are the guardian of your own inner citadel. Every time you pause instead of react, every time you choose calm over chaos, every time you walk away rather than engage, you win. You create space for healing, for clarity, for growth, and over time, you'll find that the people who used to shake you don't even move you anymore. That's not numbness, that's freedom. So take this seriously. Your peace is worth protecting. Your energy is sacred. You don't need to explain your boundaries. And you don't need to feel guilty for building them. You are not rude for choosing distance. You are wise, and in that wisdom, you plant the seeds of a life that no longer revolves around surviving toxic encounters, but thriving beyond them. If this message resonates with you, let it be the start of something deeper. Subscribe to the channel for more grounded, Stoic wisdom that empowers you to rise above the noise. Share this with someone who might need to hear it right now. Because we all need reminders that peace is not found in avoiding pain, but in learning how to meet it with stillness and clarity. Stay strong, stay grounded, and above all, stay true to the calm within you. That's where your real power lives. And once you learn how to protect it, no toxic storm can touch you again.